in this conversation. What else can you add to this?
Oh, man, where do you go? I'm very happy that Matt's with us. That's amazing.
Oh,
feel fortunate, you know.
You're
Dave
like
Volker.
55.
He's 55.
Yeah.
I'm camping.
Hey, you think so we're already in the desert right now? So I made it to the desert.
No, it was too windy, so we just came to a campground.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sure
My
all
friend-
those people are enjoying you.
My friend already rented a motorhome, and it was like, well, you can't return it, so we decided to just go to a campground because it was 45-mile-per-hour winds at the desert.
Couldn't you guys just find a jump for the motorhome?
A jump?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If Matt was with you, that's what would have happened.
The Lord.
Did you hear his Matt response when you said that you couldn't make it because the winds were too high? It was, oh, I totally would have been there, basically.
Yeah, he don't care.
Yeah.
I have a question for everybody. Is everyone on gallery mode? Can they see all the other people, or Matt, can you only see the people that you're talking that's talking?
No,
Slide it over.
I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see. Let's see here. I see from me to Aaron, and I have like Joe and you but then I think I needed to be wider to see the other.
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Make it wider so you might be able to see everybody.
But I don't see Ray or Chris or Dave, but I see everybody. But
I've got little dots on the bottom of the phone, and when I scroll to the next dot, I see different people.
Oh, because you're on a phone. Matt's on a computer though.
Matt, in the upper right corner, if you put your mouse there you go.
So actually do the thing called view and put gallery view. Well, looky at us. Hey,
There we are. Okay.
We got a Brady bunch.
Welcome.
Party now.
It's a party. Yeah.
Wow.
So, Chris, is there anything that you want to add to this conversation? I know it's been a while since we've chatted, and thank you for joining. Gosh, it's such an honor. I know
You
you've
look
been
exactly the same, Dave.
What's that?
I know every time that I have heard somebody run into you, they say he looks exactly the same, but you do. You look exactly the same. So
I know, Dave. You turned 55, but you're still doing that Volker fly out in our minds.
Nice. Oh no.
He's gone.
Dave.
He had to go.
now
2
you're
days
gonna-
on the call. I think Matt got confused, but I think you were talking about me, or were you talking about Volker?
I was talking about Volker.
Okay, and I think Chris
Oh,
might have
wait,
been
yeah,
talking.
2 days. I'm sorry. With Volker and Nuri, I didn't never call you guys Dave, so I got confused for a minute.
I
all good.
prefer Lord,
Hey, he's back.
Lord, or Perenne.
Lord Perenne.
Lord.
Lord
Piranha.
Perenne. Piranha.
Yeah, and I don't think I've talked to Dave in 30 years. It's been a long time.
That'd been when he was 30 years old or 35 years old. 'Cause he just had his 55th birthday a few days ago.
2
Yep.
days ago. 3
Happy
days
birthday
ago.
to you.
On the third.
Double nickel.
Double.
Yeah.
Chris,
So
did
it's a
you
company
and
of all
Volker
these-
do shows together? Quite a
We
bit.
did a few shows together, not too many. Just where they had the drive-up ramps, you park them at the end of a parking lot.
So one of the questions that we were asking is the feeling of being nervous when you don't quite feel included in a group or a contest or a jam. And I can imagine for you, I don't know, I guess I'm curious, how was that for you coming into the scene?
Well, I rode for like a year before I knew that I was one of the, few females in the sport. So like my whole, people that I
this is
rode
Chris
with, like
Doshi.
we just thought everybody, hi Matt, how are you?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of slow. I'm a little, but it
Sorry.
just kind of all came together.
We'll be here for you when you get here.
We're here for you, Matt. We're here for you, Matt.
No worry.
Okay, continue, Chris.
no.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, like I really didn't know. I was in like the New York Masters, where I think, Matt, it was one of your first nationals too, in Long Island. And like,
Yeah.
you know, and I was like 14 or 15. Like, I know that was the class I rode, and like I had zero idea. You know, I just rode with a bunch of kids from, you know, northeastern Ohio, and we just thought, you know, we had no reason to think that girls didn't do it. There was no reason for it. And the more, you know, the more I got involved at the sport, the more it became kind of this like, oh, it's a girl. And then, you know, and then it was the 80s, and, you know, there was that whole California look they were going for. And so they, you know, there was some capitalization on that. And I was virtually clueless. I was just having a good time until you guys got out of pocket there for a bit. I had to leave.
You guys got fucked straight.
Yeah, you're at the Madison Square. You're at the Madison Square Garden contest.
I was at Madison Square Garden, but you know, Madison Square Garden. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah.
What's that?
I think it was Madison Square Garden. I don't know. Probably
Yeah,
Brett knows more than I do. Or if you could get Todd Carter, he seems to remember everything.
Hey, Joe, can you call
I
Todd?
didn't.
Yes.
He knows like
Todd
any
Anderson knocked
history.
himself
You
out,
can
like,
ask him, and he'll be like, "Oh yes, 5:45. We did this, and then we pulled out, and we bought spearmint gum at the Circle K." And
At that contest that I'm thinking of, I remember Todd Anderson doing his rad, like one hand, one footer, and it almost looked inverted, but then he slammed, he knocked himself out. Is that?
I just remember you, because I think like you came out of nowhere at that point.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody ride like that before.
Yeah, I was kind of a man. I'm trying to remember what I did, but yeah, that was cool. I mean, it's just like it was the first time we got to meet all the superheroes. You know,
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. But no, nobody even brought it up to me that I was a girl until like, you know, even though the riders didn't really make that big a deal of it until like sponsorship stuff happened and like shows and stuff. And then it became a thing. But, and, you know, and that was, I understood it, but it was not necessary. And it probably created more division than it needed to. And it certainly didn't make it any easier for other girls to get in right then. I mean, if you think about it, there was really only like 4 or 5 of us that rode back then. And it was like the 90s before, you know, all through the 80s, there was just a handful of girls. And, you know, when I would talk with girls who would get on my bike and try something, there was always reasons. I remember there was very clear reasons why they couldn't do any more than, you know, hop on the front pegs.
I don't know. That's weird because people always, you know, they asked about you and I said, I don't know. She was just another rider to me. It didn't matter her gender. I didn't think of that. She was just a friend that rides bikes. And I'm like everybody here, we're all friends that ride bikes, and that's all it was.
Dave may have more insight to this because the time, like when it started to get kind of weird was when I would do shows and Magoo was the manager. And I think Magoo had been given very clear directives to be very careful around my femaleness. So
Dave, do you remember? Do you have any insight on that, Walker?
Behind the scenes on that.
No, I heard I was there.
You heard you were there.
Yeah, that's
Look,
I'm just thinking of Magoo and having to. He's just a natural destruction everywhere he goes. So just, I mean, and I don't know. I couldn't imagine him being proper around a woman rider.
No, he was very, very proper, made sure she had her own room, was taken care of, you know, like a father figure. It was really cool. I do remember a little bit.
Yeah, if you wanted to see Magoo on his best behavior, but if you guys know anything about me like that, I didn't need best behavior.
You were as crazy as anybody else.
I think I may have superseded some of you in my.
Oh,
Well, you know, I remember, you know, it what was it 1988, 89 at the woodward contest when we basically, you know, started a riot together because, you know, with a boom box, and then you started dancing, and then everybody, 200 people at Woodward blew up the place.
Yeah.
So,
Good
it was
times.
fun. Good times.
They let us back though.
Yeah.
For anybody that's tuning into the podcast right now, can we just pretend that I'm like some famous guy that you guys all know? And I've been around the scene for many, many years, and they should all know who I am.
You don't have to pretend, Andy.
No,
Andy,
Andy, you can be James McGraw.
Okay.
Be James. Be James McGraw.
I'll
Hey
be
Chris,
myself,
it's Todd
but
Carter.
leave everybody questioning, like,
Todd
who
Carter?
is it? Like Andy, what is he from? Like, when was he riding?
Yes,
that's up to you, Andy. You got to make it. I mean, you got the platform, so now it's all you.
Yeah. No, I just
Todd,
pretend that
welcome.
I'm somebody. Yeah, I've been around for like the 80s, like, you know.
Well, hold on a second. You did ride. So you rode back. When did you start riding?
Like, so I don't even remember learning how to ride a bike. I was so young. I taught myself how to ride a standard bike with no training wheels in the park across the street from my parents' house by borrowing my neighbor's bike. So I just taught myself, and I've always just been riding. So doing flatland tricks, probably 88, maybe.
Nice.
So, and
what
like
did you ride? What bike did you have?
So back in the 80s, like this is kind of what got me into flatland, is Eddie Fiola's VHS of King of the Skate Parks. And that was like my introduction to flatland and ramp riding and all that stuff. I was riding a Schwinn Predator at the time. And then in 93, I got my brand new GT Performer because of Fiola. I wanted to be like him. And yeah, I rode for, you know, quite a few years after that. But, you know, back then in the 90s, there was no YouTube. The scene around where I live is very small and very spread out. So all my friends started skateboarding. So I just kind of migrated to skateboarding. But I've always had like a love. I've always, you know, I kept my bike. I always rode occasionally. And then when the pandemic hit, I just kind of went sideways with it, you know. And it's like, yeah, I'm old, but, you know, I just leaned into it and wanted to see how good I could get. And it's kind of where I'm at right now.
What did you see? What like piece of content or what idea did you have that triggered you to say, I'm going to get a bike?
It was probably the movie Rad. I would like.
What about the second time?
The second, to get back into it?
To get back into it.
So that started because a friend of mine was refurbishing old bikes and like old school, you know, GTs and dynos and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, I still got mine in my parents' house. And then at that time it was hanging in the garage. It started to get a little surface rust. He's like, dude, give it to me. I'll go through it. I'm like, sweet. So I brought it over to him. Like tires were all flat, you know, surface rust, bearings were all seized up, and he went through it and cleaned it up, and it looks amazing now.
I got one question for you about that bike.
Yeah.
Because I assume it has a gyro. Does it also have a POTS mod?
It does have a POTS mod.
What was your first trick that you did once you got it all dialed? Like, what was the first trick?
When I was a kid or back?
No. After you got the bike, yeah.
Oh, back, yeah. So the first trick, I had never landed it before. It was just a foot jam tail whip. Literally the first thing, I met up with Matt, the guy that sold it to my parents back in the day. And we were riding at a skate park, and I kind of, you know, rode around a little bit. And I'm like, oh, let me try this. And spun my first tail whip and rolled out of it the first time ever. Like literally first attempt after 20 some years back riding a bike, and I landed it for the first time. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite piece behind you in that cabinet?
Good question, Ray.
This is my wife's office, so I don't really know what's all in that.
Well, Just if you had to pick something, come on. What is in there? What are you collecting, or what is she collecting? Family heirlooms.
It's family pictures. The Harry Potter books right there.
What's the
tennis
yellow
from
ball?
Wimbledon?
That's okay.
Yeah, not like a real one. Obviously, it's a little bit larger. It's a novelty
Okay.
one.
All right,
But,
I was just checking because Joe
What's on
likes
top?
Star
What's
Wars
on top?
figures.
Oh, I do love Star Wars figures.
No, like if I was in the basement, I have a pretty epic Lego Star Wars collection, and I have my bikes hanging up, but I just didn't have like a good space to do, you know, this in down
Let's
there.
see the
So,
bikes. Can you show
What?
us the
You know
bikes?
what, Andy? I'm realizing something. You're worried about like going up and talking to people and stuff. Just this little bit we've been with you here, you're just like everybody else. You know,
I
what
know.
mean? We're
I
all
think
the
I realize-
same. Seriously,
Yeah.
you know, it's weird. So I mean, it's not
No,
weird, but
that's what I wanted to point out earlier. I was going to say something is like, I like when somebody comes up to me and we're just friends because we both ride BMX and nobody's better than anybody. We're just part of a family. And if you treat people like that you're nervous to be around, they're going to be comfortable with you and talk to you more if you're just like not asking them certain questions, but just treating them like a real human. You know, we're all the same.
The
Yeah,
Lord
yeah.
speaketh.
Lord speaketh.
Matt's in church.
Spoke it.
Matt's in church all of a sudden now.
Well,
Amen.
Hey, I
you
just
know,
want to
like-
welcome someone else. Actually, two more people. So Todd, welcome, and thank you for joining. We've kind of just been adding people as we go.